Hello, my name is Prashant Sampathkumar, and this is my multicultural literature final. In some works of literature, childhood and adolescence are portrayed as times graced by innocence and a sense of wonder. In other works, they are depicted as times of tribulation and terror. Focusing on a single novel or play, explain how its representation of childhood or adolescence shapes the meaning of the work as a whole. This prompt 2, was the prompt that I selected because it best matched what I thought was the best and most intriguing theme in The Kite Runner. I selected The Kite Runner because it had the most motifs and themes that I found interesting. So, starting from the beginning, the protagonist Amir and his best friend Hassan have been best friends forever, but Amir is always jealous of the affection and attention that his father shows Hassan. Up until later on in the novel, we always wonder why Baba shows this much affection to Hassan, and then we realize that Baba is actually the father to Hassan and Amir, but he feels guilty that he cannot give the same childhood and societal status to Hassan as he does to Amir. So, what we have to realize when we're analyzing this novel in the given prompt was that it contains aspects that shows the child as both enjoying his time as a child, but also having times of terror. So, if you look at Amir's side of his childhood, he's part of the elite class in Afghanistan, but if you look at his best friend Hassan, he's living as a Hazara, which is depicted and discriminated against as the poor, more servitude type class in Afghanistan. So, in this novel, we see that the terror and tribulation part come in when Hassan gets raped and Amir just watches and runs away to tell his Baba that he had won a kite in a kite battle. This shows the type of person that Amir is because he desperately seeks the approval of his Baba and doesn't care that his best friend is being assaulted in an alleyway. Later on in the novel, we realize that he only did this due to his fear of intervening and his fear of not gaining approval from Baba, and that he deeply regrets it, but still wouldn't change his actions when faced with the same dilemma. So, if we look at it in terms of the prompt, in the time of his childhood, Amir was privileged in the sense that he was given all the material wealth that he desired and the social status, but he wasn't granted this affection and kindness that he sought from his Baba. So, although he was innocent and wondered about the world around him and how his lifestyle was greatly above that of his best friend, the mirror side of the situation was his best friend Hassan, who lived in the poor people class, to say, and was often discriminated against even by his own best friend and the people around him. So, Hassan is a Hazara, which means that he was always treated as a servant, even though he was the son of Baba, who was a rich merchant. So the only indication that we have that Hassan is happy is that he is always around Amir and doesn't complain about the life that he is living. Even when he gets raped, he doesn't go around like publicizing that such a tragedy occurred to him. He just shrinks away and lives in his own little shell. So this type of terror is a complete extreme to what the child experiences, and the fact that Amir doesn't help him just builds the fact that it was a terrible experience for Hassan. So the piece that I selected was contained aspects of um, both parts of the topic, and I believe that it best portrayed how two children living in such a similar environment can experience two polar opposites of the same um, idea of childhood because of their societal status. So, another piece of literature that helps support this is the Joy Luck Club and the celebrating the Asian American experience part of the module that we learned. So in that, the children are raised in America but are raised by Asian parents. And what they don't seem to understand is that even though they live in America and experience the same like ideals, they're not treated similar as the other kids because they're discriminated against for being Asian. So if you look at that context, if you look at that piece in the context of prompt number two, you realize that they're also terrified of being accepted into society because they're not seen as one of the other kids. They're seen as others and to per se aliens because they have different parenthood than the classical white folks that you see in current society. So if you compare that with the kite runner, they're two different situations. However, they experience the same type of um, childhood isolation that you see. So I selected these two for the prompt analysis because they showed how children often face their own obstacles when growing up, and although it may not seem major, it affects them in the long run. That's why I chose these two pieces for the prompt analysis. Hi, so for the final part of my project, for the reflection state, I will be answering these 5 questions. So for the first question, how have I grown as a learner through the course of the semester? I've learned about the personal struggles and the personal obstacles that all the individuals had faced throughout history and their personal anecdotes and explanations of how they overcame each obstacle in the times of adversity. So, what we mostly learn in school is the historical event and the historical movements that took place and how each individual was significant in terms of that event. But through this course, I learned more about the personal struggles that each individual went through and how that contributed to them overcoming this racial and sexual discrimination. So, what is the most important idea, and explain this in my own words? So, to me, in this module, what really stuck out and seemed the most important was the idea of being an individual and being your own defined individual, regardless of the discrimination and the prejudice that you face in society. So, why I believe this is the most important is that in society, there are plenty of people that try to conform to the norm and try to suppress their inner individuality. But I believe that's really important because that's who you are as a person, and you should embody that person and work with that your own individual self to seek happiness. And you shouldn't be told that just because you're not part of the norm, you can't be happy in the society. And this module really helped um, bring out that idea because all of these individuals that we analyzed in the module all faced discrimination because they were different from what the norm was in society. So, what are the values or beliefs that inform the idea and include your preferred literary theory slash device? So, the theory that I really read into was Marxism, which is also like the base for communism. And this theory is basically about conforming to a unified government and being part of a greater whole. So, why I studied this literary theory was that it was the complete polar opposite of the idea that I was trying to talk about. This theory talks about how everyone should conform and the government should be allowed to set their own restrictions and limits on how each person should live and what each person should produce and work as. So, I studied this because it's in many popular pieces of literature, such as 1984 and Animal Farm, and it really shows what happens when the central or like government figure tries to conform everyone and treat everyone as equal. It is a failed structure and it hasn't prevailed yet. So, what we realize from this lens in literary theory is that it doesn't work because the individual side of each person is what promotes the idea of ingenuity and creativity. And if each person is told to conform, there's always that one part of the person that wants to be their own unique self, and that will cause a revolution in the long run and thus crumble and destroy the social construct of Marxism. So the next question is, how do you think that the issue is viewed by those whom you disagree? So the people that disagree that individuals should embody their own set of personalities, I think they view this issue as conforming to the norm best helps set a standard for like everyone's lifestyle, but they do not understand the idea of how individuality helps create a safer environment and a more productive environment in the natural world. So the issue with how the other side sees the idea of individuality and being your own person is that they do not understand how each individual builds from what they're given and how they incorporate their cultural and traditional beliefs into a daily lifestyle. And how can or will you use what you learned in the course outside the four walls of our classroom? So, as a current senior moving on to college, I'll definitely be more understanding and patient when talking to people of different racial groups because each person is built a specific way. They have their own ideology, they have their own traditions and beliefs that they want to follow. And I think the best way to make friends and be an understanding person is to realize that each person's ethnicity, cultural, and traditional beliefs is what shape how they are as an individual, and their beliefs should not be just stomped upon just because you do not agree with it. And each person has their own opinions, which matter just as much as your opinions do. So I really enjoyed this course, and thank you, Ms. Silveri, for being a great teacher. Thank you.